How do you rebuild trust when your spouse, namely your husband, keeps letting you down or it feels that way? This might be one of the most challenging thing you'll ever do or be asked to do. So in this video, we're going to look at a bit closer as to why your husband might be failing in this area and to see if there is some remedy to his actions. Also, you could, as his wife, be making a biased conclusion, which is understandable, but maybe there are things you have not considered. Could that be possible? And if it's so, then maybe we might want to have this conversation. I know that his repeated behaviors can chip away at trust in the marriage, which may have led you to feel like you can't count on him or trust his words anymore, right? I know that it's not a lack of you bringing this to his attention, or is it a one-time thing? You probably, if we sat down talking right now, you would say, Kingsley, you don't understand. It's not that I've just come to this conclusion or this way of thinking overnight. It's been going on for some time. And I think I get that, and I'm very empathetic towards that. And I would never argue that point with you. But I want to pose some other alternative way of thinking. So I'm going to ask that if you could put to suspend your conclusion for a moment, at least for the length of this video. And let's take another look at what might be going on, because possibly there are some things, if you understood fully, or as I share them with you, may possibly change the way you look at things. I love a quote that I've often used, and that was stated about perspective, about how we see things. And the quote goes this way: if we change the way we look at things, then the things we look at changes, right? The late Jim Rohn, I think, was the one who made that quote, or made that comment on that quote is attributed to him. If we change the way we look at things, the things we look at changes. So hopefully this might be true in this video for you as well. Now, some of what I'll be sharing is coming both from my own personal experience as a person who's been married for almost as actually of this recording is 39 years, and we're counting, and we're speeding to the 40th year, which I'm so grateful to God, because it's his grace that's made that possible. But also from my professional experience as a licensed and marriage and family therapist and a certified relationship coach. You may have heard me talk about this in other videos as well. Now, I've worked with spouses like you as a licensed marriage and family therapist and as a coach, and have heard literally thousands of stories. Many of those stories are like yours. And if you spoke to my wife, possibly she would kind of, agree with you to some degree about what you're experiencing. So I think that what I'll be sharing might shed some light on some things you have not considered. A quote that I want to use as right up front here is by Wazir Khan, who said, sometimes you don't realize what you have until you almost lose it, right? Until you almost lose it. And I can tell you there are many instances in my life. It's when I've almost lost something that I realize how important or how valuable that thing was or that person was in my life, because it came so close to losing them or losing that thing. So that is where I think we want to look through those lenses as we kind of take a second look, another look at what you might be experiencing. But can I just bring some things now about how you're feeling frustrated But maybe some things that leads to the frustration and may even be forgotten is something like this about your husband. Maybe your husband forgets errands, misses deadlines, misses that date night or the anniversary or the plans that you set in motion, or the children, a calendar event that he forgot, or just maybe he seems paralyzed by his overwhelm, the workload. And maybe some of those things could be contributing factors. Now, I know you might be saying, yes, but does that excuse him? Well, again, I ask if you could suspend some of those things for a second. Let us begin to explore together and possibly see if anything changes, having brought these things to your to you, right? So these things can make you feel frustrated and unappreciated, and I get it. But again, we want to look at some of these things that I think could be at play with your husband. You know, many studies have talked about this idea of how when you feel unimportant and unsupported or dismissed in marriage, that it leads to decreased trust and feelings of isolation. So maybe your trusting of your husband is because of the fact that you're feeling dismissed, you're feeling unimportant or unappreciated in your relationship. And I get it that this would lead to what you're experiencing. Now, can I also say that often your husband's unreliability isn't about a lack of love? Isn't that he doesn't care? Because if I was to speak to your husband and ask him, is this an issue of love or not caring? Most times, I can tell you in my experience of working with husbands like yours, that this would be, they would, stand firm on this is not so. They will tell you that this is not true. So many men under pressure, including your husband and sometimes me, I can tell you from personal experience, when I'm under pressure, I'm a kind of a different kind of guy. When I'm overstressed, I'm not the same that I would be under normal circumstances. And I think your husband also experiences that. And who doesn't? Who doesn't, right? So it's not just for your husband. I'm sure it's also true for you as well. But many men under pressure, especially entrepreneurs like your husband, like myself, right? Or those who have with demanding jobs, we struggle with feelings of overwhelmed. I mean, that is a feeling we have many times. And again, sometimes that feeling is what paralyzes us because we just don't know where to start, and we just don't know even how to go and ask for help, because not that we don't know how, our pride gets in the way. If I can be honest, our pride gets in the way, and we want to work ourselves and to show that we're capable. We've got this, and we don't want to let down even the way you think about us, right? So we want to show you that we are strong and confident, and we can do this, and we're going to do this no matter what. But that's a problem. That's a problem, right? So sometimes shifting perspective to understand him might make a difference. So imagine your husband who is constantly juggling 1,000 tasks. Just the sheer volume of what he has to juggle. And again, please don't hear I'm thinking that you're not juggling yourself some of these things as well. I get it, but I want you to just to take a moment to look at the lens of where your husband might be right now. And so he might feel paralyzed by all that he has to be thinking of and trying to do, which leads to analysis paralysis, right? And he gets stuck and doesn't sometimes complete anything, not just the things that happens where it happens, it involves you, but even in his own personal life as well. I think the scripture in Proverbs 12 verse 25 is very appropriate, where it says, anxiety weighs down the heart, but a kind word cheers it up. So maybe even what your husband is going through, what typically happen is the lecture, and can I use this word? Please don't take this personal, but the nagging, maybe it's a constant ridicule, maybe it's a constant pointing out what he does not do. And these things are not helpful. It's not helping. It's not one thing more he needs. And I'm not saying you're doing this, but let's say it's the other wife. It's not you, the other wife who does this, right? But what happens is when your husband is going through this, he's carrying this heavy burden. And sometimes a kind word from you, I just what he doesn't expect. The last thing he expects for you to say is something like what you may say that cheers him up, and it can be transformative. So by approaching this situation with your husband with empathy, you can help your husband feel less overwhelmed and helps to rebuild trust because he knows that there's a distance in the relationship. He is now sure, and there's no one needs to convince him of this, that you no longer trust him with anything. Well, with most things. And so he kind of feels almost defeated and deflated. He doesn't know where to start. He wants to, but he's like almost saying, what, why even bother? Because no matter what I do, I'm so far behind the curve that I can never make up for the way my standing is in my wife's eyes. But if you're going to rebuild trust, then we've got to find a different way. How do we communicate this? Does that look like? So here are some steps in which I think might be helpful to build trust through communication. And you may have heard me mention this before, some of these things before, but I think it's worth repeating. And that is, schedule quality time, the right time. You said, Kingsley, the right time? I've tried all different ways, and there seems to be never a right time. But a quality time where it's not on the run. It's not just where, it's one of those hit and miss moments. It's not a drive-by kind of throwing something at your husband. What might need to do is disconnect from distractions where you can truly listen to his challenges. Maybe he's trying to communicate to you. Maybe he needs help, and he may not even know how to ask for it, but you could ask on his behalf because it at least is not him, right? So you could probably do that sometimes. But in this time is to try to listen to what he's not saying. Listen to how tired he is. I have a friend who sometimes will say certain things, and if you pull back the veil, pull back the curtain, what you're hearing him say is, I'm so tired. I'm just so beat. I just don't know how. And we as guys don't know how to share our feelings very well. I don't have to convince you on that. You know that very firsthand. Secondly, is focus on understanding, not blame. So ask questions like, what's causing you the most stress? Imagine you look up to your husband and say, honey, what's causing you the most stress? What? What are you? Please ask that again. What are you? Did you just ask this question? Sometimes a question like that can provoke a different response. So when you try to focus on understanding and not blame, that could be a shift in, I think the late Stephen Covey have said that if we must first try to understand before wanting to be understood. So maybe it's trying to understand where he's coming from. What's causing you the most stress is an open-ended question, and see where he goes with that. And then really truly listen. Third, work together to create solutions. You know, offer your support and some ideas you might have, because you have many. I do think you do. And then brainstorm ways to lighten his load. Again, maybe he may not be thinking about some things you it brought to the table. So that might be helpful as well. Roy Bennett made this statement. He says, communication is the key to building trust. It's the key to understanding each other, to making the best decisions, to creating a relationship that will last a lifetime. That is really true about communication. But I would go one step further and just say it's effective communication, because it's not all communication is communication. It has to be effective I even say it has to be uh, um, even deeper sometimes, right? And I call it empathic communication, where it's a lot of empathy is also involved in that effective communication approach that might be needed in this relationship. I also want to encourage you to keep your faith, and keep working as a team. Remember, God is always faithful, right? So we need to remember that sometimes we just choose to not lean upon what we're seeing, but lean on God, lean on Him for wisdom and guidance, and spend more time praying than complaining, right? Because sometimes we end up in our complaint mode and spend more time complaining than we are doing praying. And sometimes praying is important, and never undermine and think. I'm not saying you're doing this, but never think that prayer is not the most effective and potent weapon you have available to you, especially in times like this. Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and not lean upon your understanding of what's going on. And in all your ways, right? Acknowledge Him. And the Bible says God will direct your path. He will give you the wisdom as to know how to navigate times like this. Again, remember, the teamwork is both of you trying to co-create an outcome that you really want. And that's why Ecclesiastes 4, verse 9, which you may have heard me say before, is two are better than one because they have a good return for their work. So this is where you might step in to help your husband as a team, because working together as a team and communicating openly and effectively and empathically, you can rebuild trust and create an even stronger and happier marriage. And I want you to really consider these things. That's why I ask you to suspend your judgment for the sake of this video and see what might be said or brought up that you may not have considered. Or maybe God's Spirit, as you listened, is maybe provoking you in another way. Maybe He's convicting you. Maybe He's saying to you, you know, patience is what I want to work on you with. And that's why I gave you your husband. And I knew this time would come. I knew this time would come. And so maybe asking God for the grace and the patience and the wisdom to be able to navigate this season could be very helpful. And in this season is practice less is more. How can you be still and know that God is God and see Him at work on your behalf? Now, one of the things that I have thought about, because I think as you're building this happier marriage, and in my work as a licensed marriage and family therapist and certified relationship coach, but also as a person being married for 39 plus years and is an entrepreneur myself, like your husband. And I can tell you, having guilty of some of those things that I've described, and maybe your husband is doing, I find that what's been helpful is to come up with some things as a guide. So I've put together 11 rules for happier marriage, which will highlight some of what we talked about today. Like 3 of those rules, as an example, that you'll get on this one-page PDF that I put together for you, is don't keep score, right? Don't compare, and be quick to forgive. These are just 3 of the 11 that I have put together for you in that one-page PDF document as I made available. And it will be sent to you immediately after you've signed up. I'm putting together a program that I want to create founding members who can come in and be on the ground floor of this program called Happier Marriage by Design. And if you want to be on the wait list for that, and as of now, the wait list is open. If you want to be on that, you can sign up for that at buildyourhappiermarriage.com/waitlist. And the link will be below in this, you know, in this video. And if you also have not yet clicked subscribe, make sure you go ahead and do that as well. And just leave a comment below, any comments you have on what I've just said in this video. But you can sign up for the free for this upcoming Happier Marriage by Design program that I put in together, and you can get this one-page PDF. Along with that, it was sent out to you once you've signed up. Now, if you just can't, don't want to be a part of this Happier Marriage by Design program, where we're going to help to build your marriage from the ground up, or rebuild some things in your relationship, and just want the PDF, hey, you can also have that. But if you're do so, you're simply saying, I want to miss out on being one of the handful of spouses that gets a chance to first experience Happier Marriage by Design and be a founding member, where you'll get access to all the upcoming releases of videos and whatever else is happening in that program, and be empowered to design your marriage, then you can get it right now, this PDF free for the asking, at buildyourhappiermarriage.com/rules. So /waitlist, build your marriage, your happier, buildyourhappiermarriage.com/waitlist to be on the wait list and get the PDF, or just to get the PDF, Happier Marriage, buildyourhappiermarriage.com/rules, and get that as well. So I hope this is helpful for you and bring great value. If it does, then hit that subscribe button and also the like as well. And I really appreciate that. So thanks for watching. Leave a comment below and share your experience. How do you check in with your husband when he's feeling overwhelmed? What are you doing in that regards? I would love to hear your experience and what's going on there as well. And I really look forward to hearing from you. With that said, my friend, make sure you watch this other video right here. And God bless, and see you on the next video.